A pregnant wife, a Christmas dinner, and a divorce ambush she never saw coming. They forced her to sign in front of 24 relatives. They called her unstable. They threatened to take her baby. They played a fake recording of her voice saying things she never said. Her husband watched and did nothing. But here is what the Whitmore family did not know. The woman they were destroying had a secret worth $2.3 billion, and a father who had been watching them for 15 years. What happens next will leave you speechless. Stay until the end. Drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. And if this story moves you, hit that subscribe button. This is a Christmas they will never forget. They say Christmas is about family, but in that dining room, surrounded by crystal chandeliers and 24 relatives who called themselves my family, I learned a brutal truth. Some families are just wolves who learn to use silverware. The Whitmore estate sprawled across 12,000 square feet of Greenwich real estate, every inch designed to intimidate. Nora Bennett Whitmore stepped through the grand entrance, her hand instinctively moving to the curve of her belly. 7 months pregnant, she felt the baby shift as if sensing the tension that crackled beneath the surface of this picture-perfect Christmas Eve. Golden lights wrapped around every marble column. A 15-foot Douglas fir dominated the corner of the Great Hall, decorated with ornaments that cost more than most people earned in a month. The scent of pine and cinnamon drifted through the air, mixing with something else, something that smelled like anticipation. Marcus met her at the door, but his kiss landed somewhere near her cheekbone rather than her lips. He had been doing that for weeks now, distant, distracted. She told herself it was work stress. The quarterly reports had been brutal. "You look beautiful," he said, but his eyes skated past her face toward the dining room. Nora smoothed her emerald dress over her belly. "Your mother picked this out, said it matched the family colors." She did. Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "She wants everything perfect tonight." Something in his tone made Nora pause. She studied her husband's face, searching for the man who had proposed to her on a rooftop in Manhattan 5 years ago. The man who had promised her that his family's money meant nothing compared to building a life together. That man seemed very far away tonight. "Is everything all right?" Nora asked. Marcus finally met her eyes, and for one fleeting second, she saw something that looked almost like regret. Then it vanished behind his practiced smile. "Everything is fine. Come on. Mother is waiting." The dining room stretched before them like a battlefield dressed in silk and silver. 24 Whitmores sat arranged around a table long enough to land a small aircraft. Crystal stemware caught the candlelight. Porcelain plates gleamed. At the head of the table, positioned like a general surveying her troops, sat Constance Whitmore. Nora had spent 5 years trying to earn this woman's approval. 5 years of perfect hostess duties, charitable committee work, and swallowing every criticism that dripped from Constance's tongue like poison wrapped in politeness. Nothing had ever been enough. Tonight, Constance wore deep burgundy, her silver hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her face into a permanent expression of disapproval. She smiled when Nora entered, and somehow that smile was worse than any scowl. "Nora, darling," Constance's voice carried across the room. "We were beginning to worry. Traffic from the city," Nora said, taking her seat beside Marcus. "The baby has been active today. I needed to stop twice." "Of course you did." Constance's smile remained fixed. "Pregnancy does make everything so difficult." "Does it not?" The first course arrived. Butternut squash soup, served in hand-painted bowls that had belonged to Marcus's great-grandmother. Conversation flowed around the table in careful, measured tones. Stock prices, political connections, the exclusive invitations that proved the Whitmore name still meant something in certain circles. Nora listened quietly, her hand resting on her belly as the baby performed slow somersaults beneath her palm. She had never felt like she belonged in these conversations. She was polite, she tried to be gracious, but deep down, she felt like an outsider surrounded by rigid walls made of money, status, and old family pride. Halfway through the soup course, Nora excused herself to use the restroom. The pressure on her bladder had become constant these past few weeks. She made her way down the marble hallway, her heels clicking softly against the floor. She was passing Constance's private study when she heard it, her mother-in-law's voice, sharp and low, speaking into a phone. "Everything is ready. After tonight, she will have nothing." Nora froze. Her heart stuttered in her chest. The lawyers have confirmed it. The evidence is irrefutable. By midnight, she will sign or she will lose everything, including that baby. Nora pressed herself against the wall, barely breathing. Her mind raced through possibilities. A business deal, a competitor, something that had nothing to do with her, but her gut twisted with a different kind of knowing. She forced herself to move, continuing to the bathroom on trembling legs. In the mirror, her face looked pale beneath the careful makeup. She pressed cold water to her wrists and tried to slow her breathing. It could be anything, she told herself. You are being paranoid. But when she returned to the dining room, she noticed Marcus watching her with that strange expression again. And Constance's smile seemed to have grown sharper. The main course came and went, roasted duck with cherry reduction. Nora barely tasted it. She pushed food around her plate while the baby kicked against her ribs in an increasingly agitated rhythm. Finally, as the servers cleared the plates, Constance rose from her chair. She lifted her crystal glass and tapped it once with a silver spoon. The high, clear chime cut through the room like a blade. All conversation stopped instantly. Every pair of eyes turned to her. Before we serve dessert, Constance announced, I have a very special Christmas announcement. Nora's hand found Marcus's under the table. His fingers were cold. He did not squeeze back. Constance's gaze swept across the assembled family members, landing finally on Nora with an expression of pure, calculated triumph. A matter, she continued, that concerns the future of our family, and the truth that has been hidden from us far too long. The dining room fell silent. Even the candle flame seemed to still, and Nora understood, with horrible clarity, that the wolves had finally decided to show their teeth. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Nora kept her hand on Marcus's, waiting for him to look at her, to give her some sign that whatever was coming, they would face it together. But her husband sat rigid in his chair, his eyes fixed on the tablecloth as if it contained the secrets of the universe. It has come to my attention, Constance began, her voice carrying with practiced ease, that our family has been deceived. A murmur rippled through the assembled relatives. Someone at the far end of the table coughed nervously. Constance reached beneath the centerpiece of red roses and golden pine boughs. She withdrew a leather folder and placed it on the table with a soft, deliberate thud. Inside this folder is evidence, photographs, financial records, communications that prove without question that Nora has betrayed not only my son, but this entire family. Nora felt the blood drain from her face. Constance opened the folder and extracted a tablet. With 3 precise taps, she turned it so the screen faced the room. A photograph filled the display. Nora, unmistakably, standing outside a restaurant in Midtown Manhattan. Beside her, a man in a gray suit whose face Nora recognized instantly. Her father's business partner. A meeting she had kept secret because she was not ready to explain her family connections to the Whitmores. This was taken 6 weeks ago. Constance said, and here is another from October. Another photograph. Nora at a coffee shop. A different man, this time her father's chief financial officer. And another from September. Her father himself, photographed from a distance that blurred his features enough to make identification uncertain. 3 different men, 3 secret meetings. The pattern of a woman conducting an affair. Nora's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. The baby kicked hard against her ribs. These photographs are not what they look like, she finally managed. Those men are business associates. I can explain. Constance's expression hardened into something that resembled satisfaction. Business associates you never mentioned to your husband. Meetings you kept completely hidden. I had reasons. I am certain you did. Constance turned the tablet toward the family again. Based on this evidence, and on the expert analysis of our medical consultants, we have serious concerns about the paternity of the child Nora carries. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. Nora felt the world tilt sideways. She gripped the edge of the table to steady herself. That is insane. This baby is Marcus's child. We can prove it with a simple test. Can we? Constance's voice dripped with false sympathy. Because the timing of your secret meetings raises some very troubling questions. Marcus, Nora turned to her husband, desperation cracking her voice. Tell her. Tell them all that this is ridiculous. For a long, terrible moment. Marcus said nothing. Then he pushed back his chair and stood. Nora felt her heart stop beating. Mom has shown me the evidence. he said, his voice flat and rehearsed. Given the circumstances, I think it is best if we separate. The words landed like physical blows. Nora stared at him, watching her entire world collapse in the span of a single sentence. You knew, she whispered. You helped plan this. Marcus finally looked at her, and in his eyes she saw the truth. Guilt, shame, and beneath it all, the unmistakable mark of a man following orders. He did not deny it. The tears came then, burning down her cheeks before she could stop them. But they were not tears of weakness. They were tears of betrayal, of a 5-year marriage reduced to ashes in front of 24 witnesses. Constance produced another document from the folder, a thick stack of papers bound with a blue cover. These are divorce papers, she announced, prepared by our family attorneys. If you sign tonight, Nora, we can keep this quiet. We will not pursue adultery charges. We will not make the paternity issue public. Nora's voice came out strangled. Adultery charges. There was no adultery. The photographs suggest otherwise. Constance slid the papers across the table toward Nora. Sign, and you can leave with some dignity intact. Refuse, and we will prove in court that you are an unfit mother. The baby kicked again, harder this time. Nora pressed both hands to her belly, trying to protect the life inside her from the violence of words. Around the table, relatives exchanged uncomfortable glances. A few whispered to one another. Someone at the far end muttered, "She is 7 months pregnant. This is cruel." But no one spoke up. No one challenged Constance. The silence of the room was its own form of cruelty. Nora looked at the papers, then at her husband, then at the woman who had orchestrated this entire nightmare. I need time to think, she said. Constance shook her head. You have until dessert is served? 1 hour? Sign willingly. Or face the consequences. Then, turning to the family with a hostess smile, she added, Now, shall we have some wine while we wait? The conversation resumed around her as if nothing had happened, as if Nora's entire life had not just been torn apart for entertainment. She sat frozen in her chair, the divorce papers burning in front of her, her husband refusing to meet her eyes. And beneath her hands, her baby moved restlessly, as if already trying to escape the family it had been born into. 1 hour. Nora thought, I have 1 hour to figure out how to survive this. But even as despair threatened to swallow her whole, something else stirred in her chest. Not defeat, not yet. The grandfather clock in the corner marked each passing second with merciless precision. Nora sat motionless at the table while conversation flowed around her like water around a stone. Her hands trembled as she pulled the divorce papers closer, forcing herself to read each page even though the words blurred through her tears. Buy time, she told herself. Think. Constance watched her with the patient expression of a cat observing a trapped mouse. The candlelight cast strange shadows across her face, making her look almost demonic in the golden glow. I want to read every page, Nora said, her voice steadier than she expected. Before I sign anything, I have a right to understand what I am agreeing to. Constance's eyes narrowed slightly, but she inclined her head. Of course. Take your time. Within the hour. Nora turned the first page, then the second. Her eyes moved over the legal language while her mind raced through options. The document was comprehensive, brutal. It stripped her of everything she had built over 5 years. Assets, property rights, and most devastatingly, significant custody restrictions. Under the table, hidden by the draping tablecloth, her fingers found her phone in her clutch purse. She had silenced it before dinner at Marcus's request. Now she slid it open and typed blindly, relying on muscle memory. SOS, Whitmore Estate, need help. Now. She sent it to Diane Callahan, her college roommate turned private investigator, the one person in the world she trusted completely, the one person who had warned her about the Whitmores from the beginning. The baby shifted inside her, pressing against her lungs. She forced herself to breathe slowly. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The meditation techniques her doctor had recommended seemed absurd now, but she clung to them anyway. Constance tapped her wine glass. Since we are waiting, perhaps this is a good time to address another matter. Nora's head snapped up. I understand this is difficult. Constance continued, addressing the table at large. Her voice carried the practiced warmth of a woman who had perfected the art of delivering cruelty with a smile, which is why I have asked someone to join us, someone who can help make this transition easier for everyone. She nodded toward the dining room entrance. The doors opened. A woman stepped through, late 20s, blonde hair swept into an elegant updo, wearing a dress that probably cost 3 months of Nora's first salary out of college. Her face was beautiful and cold, and vaguely familiar from charity events Nora had attended. Everyone, Constance announced. This is Sloane Prescott. She has been working closely with Marcus at Whitmore Industries. Very closely. The implication hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had been burning in secret for months. Nora watched Sloane cross the room, and in that moment, saw something unexpected flicker across the other woman's face. Surprise, discomfort, fear. Sloane had not known about this part of the evening either. Marcus, Constance continued, I believe you have an announcement of your own. Marcus rose from his chair, his movements mechanical, like a puppet whose strings were being pulled by someone else. He looked at Sloane, then at Nora, then at the floor. Sloane and I have been seeing each other, he said. She is who I want to be with. The words should have devastated her. Part of Nora waited for the crushing weight of heartbreak to descend. Instead, she found herself watching Sloane's reaction. The way her hands clenched at her sides. The way her eyes darted toward Constance was something that looked almost like trapped desperation. This was not planned. Nora realized, at least, not the public announcement. Sloane is a pawn too, another piece on Constance's chessboard. She filed that information away for later. Constance smiled, the expression of a woman watching dominoes fall exactly as she had arranged them. Now you understand the situation fully, she said to Nora. Your marriage is over. Your husband has moved on. The only question remaining is whether you will accept this gracefully or force us to make things ugly. Nora set down the papers. Her hands had stopped trembling. I want to speak with a lawyer, she said. My own lawyer, not anyone connected to this family. Constance's smile flickered. That is not necessary. Our attorneys have drafted these documents to be completely fair. Fair to whom Nora stood slowly, bracing herself against the table as the baby shifted weight inside her. You ambushed me at Christmas dinner. You accused me of adultery with fabricated evidence. You threatened to take my child. And I am supposed to trust your definition of fair. A murmur ran through the relatives. An older woman near the end of the table whispered, She has a point. Constance's expression hardened. Sit down, Nora. You are embarrassing yourself. No. Nora drew a breath that seemed to fill her entire body. For 5 years, I have sat down. I have stayed quiet. I have let you criticize every choice I made, every dress I wore, every word that came out of my mouth, because I believed that eventually you would accept me. But you were never going to accept me. Were you? No matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried. Constance's chin lifted, a queen surveying a peasant who had forgotten her place. Some people simply do not belong in certain circles. Breeding shows, class shows. You can dress appropriately and learn the right words, but you cannot change what you fundamentally are. And some people, Nora replied, her voice carrying across the silent room, use circles as cages. She reached for her phone, but Constance was faster. She nodded once, and a man in a dark suit emerged from the corner of the room. Security. He moved toward Nora with purposeful steps, his face expressionless. I cannot allow you to contact anyone until this matter is resolved, Constance said. For the protection of our family's privacy. The security guard held out his hand. Your phone, please. Nora looked at Marcus. He stared at his plate like a child avoiding eye contact. She looked at the assembled relatives. They studied their wine glasses as if the answers to life's questions floated in the burgundy depths. She was surrounded by people, yet completely alone. Slowly, she surrendered her phone. The security guard pocketed it and stepped back. Now, Constance said, settling into her chair with visible satisfaction, shall we continue our lovely Christmas dinner while Nora finishes reviewing the documents? I believe dessert will be a chocolate souffle. The trap had closed around her, and dessert had not even been served. 45 minutes. That was how long Nora had before Constance expected her signature on those papers. 45 minutes to find a way out of a trap that had been years in the making. She excused herself to use the restroom. No one objected. Where could she possibly go? The estate was gated, guarded, and her phone was in the pocket of a man who answered only to Constance. But Nora had not survived 5 years in this family by being as helpless as they assumed. She made her way down the marble hallway, past the bathroom, toward the stairs that led to the private wing of the house. Her heels clicked against the floor, then fell silent as she removed them and carried them in one hand. The cold marble sent shivers up through her bare feet, but she barely noticed. Adrenaline had sharpened every sense. Marcus's home office was on the second floor. She had spent countless evenings there, reading on the leather sofa while he worked late. She knew every inch of that room, including the password to his computer. The door was unlocked. Of course it was. No one expected the pregnant wife to mount a counteroffensive. Nora slipped inside and closed the door softly behind her. The room smelled like Marcus, sandalwood and coffee. For a moment, the familiar scent nearly broke her. She had loved this man. She had built a life with him. She had believed in the future they were supposed to create together. No time for grief. Move. She booted up his laptop and typed the password. Their wedding anniversary. She wondered bitterly if he would change it after tonight. The desktop appeared. She navigated to his email, scanning message headers with practiced speed. Most were business-related. Quarterly reports, board meetings, merger discussions, client complaints, the mundane machinery of corporate life. Then she found it. A folder labeled simply P with a padlock icon. Password protected within a password-protected system. Paranoid, even by Whitmore standards. She tried their anniversary again. Failed. Tried his birthday. Failed. Tried the date they first met. Failed. Think. Nora. What would he choose? She sat back in the leather chair, her hand moving unconsciously to her belly. The baby was quiet now, as if waiting. Marcus was weak. Marcus followed orders. Marcus did whatever his mother told him to do. She tried Constance's birthday. The folder opened. Inside were dozens of documents, financial records, internal memos, surveillance photographs, and most damning of all, a series of emails between Marcus and Constance spanning 6 months. Nora began to read. The blood drained from her face. This was not just about divorce. The emails revealed a systematic plan to discredit her, to manufacture evidence of infidelity, and most horrifyingly, to assume control of her personal assets once the marriage dissolved. But that made no sense. She had signed a prenuptial agreement. She had come into this marriage with almost nothing. She had no claim on Whitmore money, and they should have had no claim on her. Unless she scrolled deeper, and then she understood. They know, she whispered aloud. An attachment contained a private investigator's report, her photograph, her real name, and the name she had hidden for 5 years of marriage. Nora Bennett, daughter of Theodore Bennett, sole heir to Bennett Capital, estimated personal net worth upon inheritance $2.3 billion. They had discovered her secret months ago. This entire dinner, the accusations, the photographs, the mistress, all of it was designed to force her into signing away her rights before she realized they knew. The divorce papers were not just ending a marriage. Hidden in the legal language were clauses that would transfer significant financial rights to Marcus. Rights to assets Constance assumed Nora would inherit. The baby kicked hard against her ribs, as if in protest. Nora began photographing everything, screen after screen, document after document. The burner email Constance used to communicate with her lawyer, the falsified medical records claiming Nora was mentally unstable, the bribery payments to household staff who would testify against her. She opened the desk drawers, searching for more. Her hands moved quickly, efficiently. In the bottom drawer, hidden beneath legal pads and old contracts, she found a second phone, a burner. The text messages on it referenced someone called the Bennett problem. If we can force her to sign under emotional duress, one message read, she will have no legal standing to contest later. The pregnancy makes her vulnerable. Use it. Another message, dated just last week. The photographs are ready. Timing is critical. Christmas Eve maximizes isolation and emotional impact. Nora felt sick. Her stomach roiled, and for a moment she thought she might actually vomit right there in Marcus's expensive office chair. But beneath the nausea, something else rose. Something hot and fierce that burned away the fear. They had underestimated her. They had assumed she was just a frightened pregnant woman with no resources and no fight left. They were catastrophically wrong. She pulled out her own hidden phone, not the one they had confiscated. The second one she always carried, tucked into a hidden pocket Diane had sewn into the lining of her dress. A paranoid precaution that suddenly seemed like genius. She dialed. Diane answered on the first ring. I got your SOS. I am already on my way. What is happening? They are trying to force a divorce. They know who my father is. They have been planning this for months. A pause. Nora could hear the sound of a car engine in the background. Then Diane's voice, sharp and focused. How much time do you have? Less than an hour, maybe 30 minutes. Can you get evidence? I have some. I am photographing everything I can find. Emails, financial records. They fabricated documents to make me look unstable. Good. Keep gathering. I am 10 minutes out. And Nora, call your father. It is time. Nora hesitated. She had spent 5 years proving she did not need her father's name or money. 5 years building something of her own. 5 years trying to be loved for who she was, not what she stood to inherit. But this was not about pride anymore. This was about her child. I will, she said, but I need him to wait for my signal. I am not finished here yet. Be careful. She ended the call and turned back to the laptop. 25 minutes left, and she had just begun to fight. Nora downloaded the final batch of files to her encrypted cloud storage and closed the laptop. Her hands shook, but not from fear anymore. Anticipation, focus, the thrill of finally having ammunition in a war she had not known was being waged against her. She had enough. Emails proving conspiracy, financial records showing embezzlement, falsified medical documents, enough to destroy Constance's credibility in any court. She slipped out of Marcus's office and made her way back toward the stairs. Her bare feet were silent on the carpet. The house seemed to hold its breath around her. Then she heard the footsteps behind her, looking for something. Sweetheart. She turned slowly. Marcus stood at the end of the hallway, his silhouette backlit by the chandelier on the landing below. His face was hidden in shadow, but she could read the tension in his shoulders, the uncertainty in his voice. I was using the bathroom, she said carefully. The bathroom is in the other direction. I got lost. You have lived in this house for 5 years. They stared at each other across the Persian runner that lined the hallway floor. The grandfather clock downstairs chimed the quarter hour. 15 minutes left. Nora, Marcus said quietly, please just sign the papers. Make this easy. Easy for whom? He moved toward her, and in the light she could finally see his face. He looked exhausted, defeated. Nothing like the confident CEO he played in boardrooms and investor meetings. This was a man who had surrendered control of his own life long ago. You do not understand what she will do, he said. If you fight this, she will destroy you. She will destroy both of us. Everything we have, everything I have built. She will tear it all down. She is your mother, Marcus. And that is exactly why I know what she is capable of. I have watched her do it before. To business partners, to rivals, to my father's mistress. She does not stop until there is nothing left. For a moment, something flickered between them. The ghost of what they had once been. The man who had held her hand through her first miscarriage, before this pregnancy. The man who had promised her that family was more than blood. The man she had believed in, despite every warning sign. Help me, Nora whispered. Stand up to her. Together we could. I cannot. The words fell like a door slamming shut. Marcus shook his head. She has too much. She knows things I have done. Mistakes I made before we met. Gambling debts I could not cover. Decisions at the company that were not exactly legal. If I cross her, she will ruin me. What about your child? What about our family? He looked away, unable to meet her eyes. The baby will be provided for. Mother has promised, your mother has promised. Nora's voice hardened. Your mother has promised, the same woman who fabricated evidence to destroy me. The same woman who has been planning this for months while you smiled and kissed me goodnight. What are you talking about? I found the files, Marcus, the emails between you and her, the fake medical records, the bribery payments to the staff. I know everything. His face went pale. For a long moment, he simply stared at her. You should not have done that. Why? Because now I can fight back, because now she will never let you leave. He pulled out his phone. Marcus, do not. I am sorry, Nora. I am so sorry. He typed a message. Seconds later, she heard footsteps on the stairs below. Multiple footsteps, heavy and purposeful. Constance appeared at the landing, flanked by two security guards. Her burgundy dress caught the light like dried blood. Her expression was calm, controlled. The look of someone who had anticipated every possible move and planned 3 steps beyond. I warned you, she said to Marcus. I told you she would try something clever. Mother, she knows I heard everything through the house intercom. Constance climbed the final stairs, her heels clicking like a metronome counting down to execution. It does not matter what she knows. Evidence obtained through unauthorized access to private computers is inadmissible in court. I have copies. Nora said, I already uploaded them. Constance smiled thinly. The expression did not reach her eyes. To what device? Certainly not the phone we confiscated. And by now, your cloud accounts have been locked. Our IT specialist has been monitoring network activity since you arrived. Every upload, every file, deleted. The color drained from Nora's face. Did you really think I would not prepare for this? Constance stepped closer, close enough that Nora could smell her perfume, something floral that barely masked something rotten underneath. I have been watching you for months. Nora, I know about your little private investigator friend. I know about your father. I know about every secret you thought you were keeping. Then why go through with this charade? Because, Constance said, leaning even closer. I wanted to see you break. I wanted to watch the hope drain from your face. I wanted you to understand, completely and permanently, that you never had a chance. The security guards moved forward. One of them reached for Nora's arm. Do not touch me, she snapped. They hesitated, looking to Constance for instruction. Your friend Diane, Constance continued. My security intercepted her at the gate 20 minutes ago. She has been escorted off the property with a very clear warning about trespassing charges. Your father does not know where you are, and your cloud files, every single one has been deleted. Nora's heart hammered in her chest. She felt the walls closing in, the trap snapping shut with ruthless efficiency. Now, Constance said, let us return to dinner. It is time for dessert. And your signature. The guards flanked her, not quite touching, but close enough to make their purpose clear. Nora walked back toward the dining room on legs that felt like lead. Every step felt like a step toward the gallows. She had tried, she had fought, and she had lost. As she descended the stairs, she placed a hand on her belly. The baby moved restlessly inside her, turning and kicking as if trying to escape. I am sorry, she thought. I tried to protect you. She did not see Constance signal to one of the guards. She did not see him pocket her second phone. The one she had forgotten was still transmitting from the hidden pocket in her dress. And she did not know that everything she had said, every word of Constance's confession, Diane had heard from outside the property gate. The dining room felt smaller when Nora returned to it. The chandelier light seemed harsher, the decorations more grotesque. The Christmas tree in the corner looked like a monument to false cheer. Constance guided her back to her seat with a hand on her elbow. The touch was light, almost gentle, but Nora felt the threat beneath it. Now, Constance announced to the assembled family, Nora has had time to review the documents and consider her options. I believe she is ready to sign. 24 faces turned toward her. Some showed discomfort. Others showed curiosity. A few showed undisguised satisfaction. Nora picked up the pen. Her hand trembled. Before I sign, she said, I want everyone in this room to witness what is happening. I am being coerced. I am signing under duress. And someday, the truth about tonight will come out. Constance's smile tightened. Sign the papers. Nora, I am signing because you have left me no choice. But I want it on record. Sign the papers. The command cracked through the room like a whip. Nora's hand moved toward the signature line. Then pain lanced through her abdomen. She gasped, dropping the pen. Both hands flew to her belly as liquid warmth spread beneath her. No, 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 no. Oh my God, someone at the table exclaimed. She is bleeding. Nora looked down. A dark stain was spreading across the skirt of her emerald dress. Not blood, water. Her water had broken. 7 months. Too early. Far too early. The baby, she gasped. Something is wrong. The room erupted into chaos. Relatives pushed back chairs. Someone screamed for a doctor. Marcus stood frozen, his face white as chalk. Constance remained perfectly still. "Get Dr. Matthews," she said calmly. "He is in the study." An older man in a gray suit appeared within minutes. Family physician. Whitmore loyalist. He knelt beside Nora, pressing his fingers to her wrist, shining a light in her eyes. "Her pulse is rapid," he announced. "She is showing signs of severe stress. Premature labor is possible. Then we need to get her to a hospital," Marcus said, finally finding his voice. Dr. Matthews shook his head. "Moving her now could be dangerous. She needs to remain calm and stationary. I recommend keeping her here under observation." Nora grabbed his arm. "I need a real hospital. I need doctors who actually care about my baby. Mrs. Whitmore." His tone was patronizing. "I have been treating this family for 30 years. I assure you, you are in good hands." Constance stepped forward. "Given her obvious emotional instability, I think it is best she remain here tonight, for her own safety, and for the safety of the child." The trap closed another inch. Nora felt tears streaming down her face. The contractions had stopped for now, but the terror remained. "You cannot keep me here against my will. We are not keeping you anywhere." Constance's voice was honey over poison. "We are simply ensuring you receive proper medical care. Is that not what a responsible family does?" A few relatives nodded. Others looked away, unwilling to challenge Constance even now. Nora slumped in her chair, exhausted and defeated. Her baby was in danger. She was trapped. Everyone she had called for help had been intercepted. And then Constance delivered the final blow. "There is one more thing," she said. "Before we move you to the guest room for observation." She nodded to a servant, who brought over a small speaker and placed it on the table. "I did not want to do this," Constance said, "but given your accusations tonight, I feel the family deserves to hear the truth." She pressed a button. Nora's voice filled the room. "I wish I had never gotten pregnant. This baby is ruining my life. Sometimes I think I should have ended it when I had the chance." The words hit like physical blows. Relatives gasped. Someone covered their mouth in horror. "That is not real," Nora said immediately. "I never said that. That is manipulated." The recording continued. More damning statements. More terrible confessions she had never made. Artificial intelligence. Nora realized. They had used her voice from other recordings to generate something completely fabricated. "This is fake," she shouted. "It is artificial. It is not me." But doubt had already spread through the room. She could see it in their faces. The sidelong glances, the pursed lips. Even the relatives who had shown her sympathy now looked at her with suspicion. Marcus stared at the table. He did not defend her, I think. Constance said quietly, "We can all see why I have concerns about this woman raising my grandchild." Nora's body began to shake. The contractions had not returned, but something worse had taken their place. A deep, bone-cold certainty that she had lost. Her evidence was destroyed. Her ally was gone. Her own voice had been turned into a weapon against her. And her baby, the innocent life she had sworn to protect, was in danger because of the stress these people had deliberately inflicted on her. "Take her to the guest room," Constance said. "She needs rest before we continue our discussion." Hands reached for Nora's arms. She did not have the strength to fight anymore. As they led her away from the dining table, past the glittering Christmas tree and the elegant decorations and the family who had just witnessed her complete destruction, Nora felt something die inside her. Not hope, not entirely, but something close. She did not see the servant slip into Constance's private study. She did not see him pull out a second phone and dial a number. And she did not hear him whisper, "Ma'am, there is an issue. The woman's phone we confiscated." It was still transmitting. Someone has been listening to everything. The guest room was beautiful and cold. Floral wallpaper in pale rose and cream. Antique furniture that probably cost more than most cars. A four-poster bed with silk sheets. And a lock on the outside of the door. Nora sat on the edge of the bed, her wet dress clinging to her skin. Someone had brought her a change of clothes, neatly folded on a chair near the window, but she had not moved to put them on. The baby had settled. No more contractions, but her hands would not stop trembling. She had nothing. No phone, No allies. No way out. The silence pressed against her ears. Somewhere downstairs, she could hear the muffled sounds of the family continuing their Christmas celebration. Laughter, clinking glasses, the normal sounds of holiday cheer that now seemed obscene. 3 soft knocks on the door. Nora tensed. Her body went rigid, preparing for another assault. Mrs. Whitmore. A voice she did not immediately recognize. Male, careful, professional. I have brought you some tea. Mrs. Constance thought it might help calm your nerves. The door opened. Raymond Sterling stepped inside, carrying a silver tray with a delicate porcelain teapot and cup. The family lawyer, the man who had drafted the divorce papers that had started this nightmare. The man whose signature appeared on every document designed to destroy her. I do not want your tea, Nora said flatly. He set the tray down on the bedside table and closed the door behind him with a soft click. Then he did something unexpected. He pulled a small electronic device from his jacket pocket and pressed a button. A soft humming filled the room, almost below the threshold of hearing. White noise generator, he said quietly. It will block any listening devices. We have approximately 5 minutes before someone notices I have been in here too long. Nora stared at him. What are you talking about? Raymond moved closer, his voice barely above a whisper. His eyes, which she had always thought cold and calculating, now held something that looked almost like fierce determination. I have been waiting 15 years for someone brave enough to fight Constance Whitmore. I was beginning to think no one ever would. I do not understand. This is some kind of trick. No trick. Your father hired me? Nora, 15 years ago, long before you ever met Marcus. My job was to watch the Whitmore family finances and report anything suspicious directly to him. She shook her head, disbelief warring with desperate hope. That is impossible. My father does not even know about the Whitmores. I never told him I was married until after the wedding. He knows everything. He has always known. Raymond's voice was patient but urgent. He simply respected your wish to build your own life without his influence. But he never stopped protecting you from the shadows. Every business deal Marcus made, every financial move Constance attempted, your father has been watching. The words washed over her like warm water over frozen skin. All this time, all this time. Raymond reached into his jacket and produced a small phone, sleek and black. Unlike anything commercially available, this is a secure device. Military-grade encryption. Untraceable. I have been documenting Constance's financial crimes for years. Embezzlement from Whitmore Industries, tax fraud through offshore accounts, bribery of federal officials. Enough evidence to put her away for decades. Then why wait? Why let her do this to me tonight? Because I needed someone on the inside willing to testify. Someone who had witnessed her cruelty firsthand. He met her eyes, and for the first time, she saw real emotion in his face. Someone like you. Someone who could not be dismissed as a disgruntled former employee or a competitor with an axe to grind. A victim, a pregnant woman, a mother. Nora took the phone. Her hands were still shaking, but something else stirred beneath the fear. The spark she thought had died downstairs, crushed under Constance's heel, began to flicker again. Constance will know, she said. She monitors everything. She said she deleted my files. She said she intercepted Diane. Not this device. This phone uses satellite encryption that her IT team cannot touch. And there is something else you should know. What Richard Whitmore, Marcus's uncle, he has been waiting for this moment even longer than I have. Richard Nora thought of the quiet man who rarely spoke at family dinners, the one who sat in corners nursing his whiskey, the one everyone dismissed as harmless, perhaps a little slow, certainly no threat to Constance's power. 20 years ago, Constance destroyed his wife's reputation, accused her of stealing from the family trust, made her life so unbearable that she drove her car off a bridge. The police called it an accident. Richard knew the truth. He has been gathering evidence ever since, waiting for the right opportunity. When he saw what she was doing to you tonight, he contacted me. He is willing to help. Hope flickered in Nora's chest, but she had felt hope before tonight, and it had been crushed like paper in a fist. Constance said my cloud files were deleted. She said Diane was intercepted at the gate. Raymond allowed himself a small smile. Your friend is far more resourceful than Constance gives her credit for. She was not actually stopped at the gate. She allowed herself to be seen so Constance would think she had been neutralized. Right now, she is parked half a mile away with professional surveillance equipment. Everything Constance said tonight was captured. Nora felt tears prick her eyes. Everything, including her confession about the fabricated evidence, including the threats, including that disgusting fake audio recording she played for the family. For the first time in hours, Nora felt like she could actually breathe. What do we do now? Raymond checked his watch. In approximately 2 hours, federal agents will arrive at this property. Your friend contacted them with the evidence. Embezzlement, wire fraud, interstate conspiracy. These are not state charges, nor they are federal. Constance cannot buy her way out of federal prison. And in the meantime, you stay here, you stay safe. Let Constance think she has won, and when the moment comes, you walk out of this house with your head held high. He moved toward the door, then paused with his hand on the knob. One more thing. Your father is parked outside the property gate. He has been there for 2 hours. Since the moment Diane alerted him, he is waiting for your signal. My signal. When you are ready, call him. He will not come until you ask. He wanted me to make sure you understood that this is your victory, not his. He is just here for backup. The door closed behind him. Nora sat alone in the beautiful cold room, the phone in her hand, the baby quiet and still inside her. For the first time tonight, she smiled. The fight was not over. It was just beginning. 1 hour passed. Nora changed into the dry clothes that had been left for her. She splashed water on her face. She ate a few crackers from the tray Raymond had brought. The baby needed nutrition, even if she had no appetite. Then she waited. The phone Raymond had given her sat heavy in her palm. She had not called her father yet, not because she did not need him, but because she needed to do something first. She needed Constance to say it, all of it, on a device she controlled. The door opened without a knock. Constance swept in, her burgundy dress rustling like dead leaves. Behind her, the door remained open. No pretense of privacy now. I trust you are feeling better. Her voice was cordial, concerned, a performance for anyone who might be listening in the hallway. I am. Good. Constance settled into the chair by the window, crossing her legs with practiced elegance. Because I think it is time we spoke honestly. Just you and me. Nora kept her face neutral. About what happens next? Constance's smile flickered at the edges. You are a smart woman. Nora, smarter than I gave you credit for. I know you contacted your father. I know you think you have some kind of escape route. Nora's heart stuttered. She knows. But here is what you do not understand. Constance leaned forward. I have known who you really are for 18 months. The daughter of Theodore Bennett, sole heir to one of the largest private fortunes in America. Why do you think I let Marcus marry you in the first place? The words hit like ice water. You knew before the wedding? Of course I knew. I had you investigated the week after your first date with my son. A nobody from nowhere suddenly catching the eye of the Whitmore heir. Please. I know better than to believe in coincidence. Then why allow it? Constance laughed softly. Because your father's money was useful. The Bennett name opened doors that even the Whitmore name could not. And I assumed, foolishly, that you would eventually fall in line. Accept your place. Be grateful for the status we provided. She rose from the chair and moved toward the bed. But you did not, did you? You kept your secrets. You maintained your little friendships. You refused to become what I needed you to be. And now here we are. Nora forced herself to remain still. What do you want? Constance, I want what I have always wanted. Control. The divorce papers you signed downstairs, they contain clauses that will give me significant leverage over Bennett Capital. Once your father dies, clauses hidden in language you did not have time to read properly. Those papers were signed under duress. They will never hold up. They will hold up long enough to cause damage, long enough to tie up assets in litigation for years, long enough to destroy any hope of a clean inheritance for that child you are carrying. Nora felt the phone in her pocket, recording everything. Why tell me this? She asked carefully. What is the point if you have already won? Constance smiled. Because I want you to understand something. I want you to understand that even with all your father's money, all your education, all your desperate little schemes, you never had a chance. Not against me. She moved closer, close enough that Nora could see the fine lines around her eyes, the careful mask of makeup that hid decades of calculated cruelty. I destroyed Richard's wife when she tried to oppose me. I destroyed Marcus's first girlfriend when she became inconvenient. I have destroyed everyone who has ever threatened my control of this family. You are just the latest in a very long line. For a moment, genuine curiosity flickered across her face. What I cannot understand is why you did not simply take your father's help from the beginning. Why pretend to be ordinary? Why marry my son at all? Because I loved him, Nora said quietly. Because I thought family was something real. Love? Constance laughed. Love is a story that weak people tell themselves to justify their compromises. Power is real. Control is real. Everything else is sentiment. She straightened, smoothing her dress. Your father will be arriving soon. Raymond told me about your little backup plan. Do you think I did not know he was compromised? I have known for years. Nora's blood ran cold. He has been feeding me information about your father's operations for almost a decade. Every report he sent to Theodore Bennett. I received a copy. Every plan your father made. I knew about. That is not possible. Constance's smile widened. Ask him yourself when he gets here. In the meantime, I have arranged for federal agents to arrive before your father does. They will be very interested in certain financial irregularities I have discovered in Bennett Capital. Irregularities I have fabricated. Of course, but by the time the truth comes out, your family will be ruined. She walked toward the door. Merry Christmas, Nora. I hope you appreciate the gift I have given you. The gift of understanding exactly how powerless you really are. The door closed. Nora sat frozen on the bed. Everything she thought she knew had been wrong. Raymond was a double agent. The federal evidence was compromised. Her father was walking into a trap. And she was completely, utterly alone. Oh, she pulled out the phone Raymond had given her. Oh, was it even real? Was it another piece of Constance's web? There was only one way to find out. She dialed her father's number. The phone rang twice before Theodore Bennett answered. Nora, Dad. She forced her voice to stay steady despite the trembling that would not stop. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Do not come to the house. Constance knows everything. She says Raymond is working for her. She says she has fabricated evidence against you. She says federal agents are coming to arrest you. A long pause. The silence stretched across the phone line like a held breath. Then, unexpectedly, her father laughed. Dad, this is serious. This is not funny. I know it is serious. Sweetheart, I am laughing because Constance Whitmore just made the biggest mistake of her 62 years on this earth. What are you talking about? Raymond Sterling has been playing both sides for 15 years, but only one side knows which team he is really on. Nora's mind raced. I do not understand. Raymond is mine, Theodore said, his voice firm with absolute certainty. Always has been. Every single day for 15 years. He fed Constance exactly what I wanted her to believe. Every piece of information, every financial report, every supposed vulnerability in Bennett Capital. He has been building her confidence for over a decade, letting her think she had the upper hand, letting her think she was the puppet master. But she said he has been reporting to her. She said she has copies of everything. She has copies of everything I wanted her to have. Theodore's voice carried the satisfaction of a chess player who had been planning his checkmate for years. Do you know what the most dangerous trap is? Nora. The one that looks exactly like victory. Nora looked around the guest room with new eyes, but she said there was a recording device. There is, but not the one she planted. Mine has been in that room for 6 months, ever since I first suspected she was planning something, hidden in a place her security sweeps would never check. Everything she just confessed to you, the fabricated evidence, the conspiracy, the previous victims, her admission about Richard's wife, it is all documented. She told me she destroyed Richard's wife. She told me she has destroyed everyone who opposed her. And now she has told you on a recording that will be entered into evidence. Unlike your cloud files, this recording is stored on a server she cannot touch, in a jurisdiction where she has no influence. Tears pricked Nora's eyes, hot and cleansing. You planned this, not this specifically. I never would have let you suffer like this if I had known. His voice softened with genuine pain. I planned for the possibility that Constance would eventually show her true colors. I built contingencies. I prepared weapons. I just never imagined she would use them all in a single night, in such a spectacular display of her own cruelty. You are protecting me. No. His voice was firm. You protected yourself. Everything that matters tonight, you did. You gathered evidence when anyone else would have collapsed. You contacted Diane. You stayed strong when they tried to break you. You used your intelligence and your courage and your determination. I am just here to help carry the pieces. A knock at the door. Nora tensed. Every muscle in her body went rigid. Someone is coming. That will be the cavalry. His voice carried a hint of deep satisfaction. Not the federal agents Constance was expecting to arrest me. Different ones. Different, the real ones. The ones Diane contacted 3 hours ago with evidence Constance does not know exists. Wire fraud spanning a decade. Embezzlement from Whitmore Industries pension funds. And thanks to tonight, conspiracy to commit custodial interference and harassment of a pregnant woman. These are federal charges. Nora, Constance cannot buy her way out. She cannot influence the judge. She cannot bribe the jury. The door opened. 2 men in dark suits stood in the hallway. Behind them, Nora could see several more agents moving through the house with purpose and precision. One of them held up a badge. Mrs. Whitmore. I am Agent Morrison with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have a warrant to search these premises and arrest Constance Whitmore. Nora rose from the bed. Her legs felt stronger than they had all night. The trembling had stopped. Constance Whitmore is in the dining room, and she said, I can show you exactly where she is. They walked together down the grand staircase. The sounds of the Christmas party had stopped completely. Now there was only controlled chaos, raised voices, the thud of footsteps, someone crying, the distinctive sound of rights being read. In the dining room, Constance stood surrounded by agents. Her face had lost all color. The carefully maintained mask of control finally cracked beyond repair. She looked smaller than Nora had ever seen her, diminished. This is ridiculous, she said, but her voice shook. I will have your badges. I know the governor personally. I know senators. I know people who will end your careers. Ma'am, one of the agents said calmly, please step away from the table and put your hands where we can see them. Marcus stood frozen by the fireplace, his face ashen, looking like a man watching his entire world collapse around him. Which, Nora realized, he was. The front door opened. Theodore Bennett stepped through, snow-dusting the shoulders of his black overcoat. He was tall, broad-shouldered. His presence filled the room the same way it had filled boardrooms and negotiation tables for 4 decades. But when his eyes found Nora, all the power seemed to soften into something simpler, something warmer. He crossed to her and placed his hands gently on her shoulders. Then, without a word, he pulled her into an embrace. You did it, he whispered. I am so proud of you. Nora felt the tears finally come, not tears of despair or humiliation, not tears of pain. These were different. These were release. These were the tears of someone who had walked through fire and emerged on the other side. Behind her, she heard Constance's voice rise in anger, then cut off sharply as agents escorted her toward the door. This is not over, Constance hissed as she passed. You think you have won, but I will fight this. I will destroy you. I will destroy everyone who betrayed me tonight. You will do nothing. Nora turned to face her mother-in-law one final time. Her voice was calm, clear, strong. Except wait for your trial. Constance's eyes widened. For the first time in all the years Nora had known her, something like genuine fear flickered across her face. Then she was gone. Marcus stepped forward, hesitantly. Nora, I am so sorry. I should have protected you. I should have stood up to her. I should have been the man you married instead of... She held up a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. Not tonight, Marcus. Maybe not ever. I do not know yet what I am going to feel when this is all over. But right now, I need you to give me space. But the baby, his voice cracked. That is still my child. We'll be fine. She placed a protective hand on her belly, and will be raised by someone who knows how to stand up for what is right. She turned away from him. She turned away from the table where she had been humiliated. She turned toward the door, and her father, and the future she would build on her own terms. 3 months later, spring sunlight streamed through the windows of Nora's apartment in Manhattan. It was a modest place by Bennett standards. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, a nursery painted in soft yellows and greens. She had chosen it herself, paid for it with money she had earned, not inherited. Her father had offered to buy her a penthouse, and she had refused. "I need to build something of my own," she had told him. "You taught me that." The baby stirred in her arms. A girl, Charlotte Rose Bennett, named for neither family, belonging entirely to herself. Nora walked to the window, cradling her daughter against her chest. Outside, the city hummed with ordinary life. People rushing to work, taxis honking, the smell of spring rain drifting up from the pavement. It still surprised her how normal everything felt. After the chaos of Christmas Eve, she had expected the world to look different somehow, but the world did not care about her personal disasters. It simply kept moving. Her phone buzzed. A text from Diane. Trial update? Constance pleaded guilty to 3 federal charges. Minimum 12 years. No parole for at least 8. Nora read the words twice. Then a third time. She should have felt triumphant, vindicated, something. Instead, she felt tired. The doorbell rang. She settled Charlotte in her bassinet and went to answer it. Marcus stood in the hallway. He looked thinner than he had at Christmas. Older. The arrogance had drained from his face, replaced by something that might have been genuine remorse. "The supervised visit," he said quietly. "I am here for my hour." Nora stepped aside to let him in. They had reached an agreement. Supervised visitation. Twice a week. For 1 hour at a time. It was more than she had wanted to give him, less than he had hoped for. But it was fair. And Charlotte deserved the chance to know her father, even if Nora herself would never trust him again. Marcus crossed to the bassinet and looked down at his daughter. His face softened. "She has your eyes," he said. "She has my mother's nose." They stood in silence for a moment. The awkwardness between them was vast and unavoidable. "I testified against her," Marcus said finally. "You know that." "I told them everything." "I know. Does that count for anything?" Nora considered the question. She had asked herself the same thing many times over the past 3 months. "It counts," she said slowly. "But it does not erase what you let happen to me. It does not erase the years you spent watching her control our lives while you said nothing. Courage at the end does not cancel cowardice in the middle." Marcus flinched, but he did not argue. "I know," he said. "I am not asking for forgiveness. I know I do not deserve that. I just want to be a better father than I was a husband." "Then prove it. Every week, every visit, every choice you make from now on." "I will." Nora was not sure she believed him, but Charlotte deserved the opportunity to decide for herself. She moved to the kitchen. "I will make some tea. You can hold her if she wakes up." "Thank you." It was not warmth. It was not reconciliation, but it was something, a beginning. Later that evening, after Marcus had gone, Nora sat alone with Charlotte in the growing darkness. The baby slept peacefully, unaware of the storms her arrival had caused, and calmed. Nora thought about Constance, beginning her prison sentence, about Marcus, trying to rebuild a life from the wreckage of his choices, about Sloane, who had testified against the Whitmores and moved to California to start over, about Raymond and Richard, who had both played their parts and then faded back into ordinary lives, and about herself. She was not the same woman who had walked into that Christmas dinner. That woman had believed in happy endings, had believed that love could conquer anything, had believed that if she was kind enough, patient enough, good enough, she would eventually be accepted. That woman was gone. In her place was someone harder, stronger, more careful, but also, perhaps, more free. Charlotte stirred, making small sounds of hunger. Nora lifted her and settled her for feeding. "I am going to tell you a story someday," she whispered, "about a woman who thought she had to hide who she was to be loved, about a family that tried to break her, about a Christmas night that changed everything." Charlotte's tiny hand curled around her finger. "But the ending of that story is not about them," Nora continued. "It is not about revenge or justice or winning." She looked out the window at the city lights beginning to flicker on. The ending is about you and me, about building something new, about never waiting for someone else to save us. She smiled. That is the story I want you to remember. Outside, spring rain began to fall, soft and clean, washing the city sidewalks, rinsing away the winter. Inside, a mother held her daughter, and the future stretched before them, unwritten, unowned, entirely their own.